What is up, beautiful people? Episode 127, which is crazy to say, of the Skorch the Fears podcast. We are here with Zena Dixon, developer, does a whole bunch of stuff, real estate investor. I'm super excited to have her on. And yeah, Zena, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
I love it. So yeah, real quick, give just a rundown of your resume, your real estate resume, kind of what you've done, what you do in real estate, and yeah, we'll start there, and then we'll get really into it.
Absolutely. So I am a real estate investor. I invest in Chicago and in Philly. I do fix and flips. I do BRRRRs, which is find a distressed property, fix it up, and refinance it and rent it out. And I also am about to get into new construction for affordable housing. And I'm also an educator, mentor in the space as well.
I love it. So yeah, so let's talk about your beginning, right? It's always what this podcast is about. It's about the beginning of people's stories. So when you were just starting out in real estate, what were you afraid of? What were the things that you were afraid of? How did you overcome them? Let's just start there.
Yeah. So I got started during the pandemic. And the reason why is because, everyone was sent home from work and you had a lot of time, so I was on social media a lot, Instagram specifically, and I would just, get into these rabbit holes about real estate. And prior to the pandemic, I never thought about getting into real estate besides my family home, after me and my husband got married. It just never occurred to me that I could own property and make money from it. So I was ravenous to get information. How can I do this? Why wasn't this talked about in my community growing up? But I think my biggest fear was just jumping out there and actually doing it. I was so scared to get my credit ran because growing up, I never prioritized credit. Cash was king. Credit in the Black community was bad. You don't want to have credit cards. You don't want to have debt. So I never prioritized it. So my biggest fear at that time was getting my credit ran. And the other fear was I'm doing something that I've never done. I'm doing something that no one in my immediate circle.
Can we talk about that for a second? Your biggest fear was getting your credit run?
Yes.
I don't even understand that. How could, in my head, I'm not from the Black community, obviously, as you can tell. Mm-hmm. Why was that your biggest fear?
Because again, I never prioritized credit. When I was younger, I had family members put things in my name as a child. So as I became an adult, and the first time I tried to get credit was maybe Fingerhut or something like that, and they denied it because they was like, your credit is terrible. And from that point on, I just said, well, anything that I need to buy, I'll just pay cash for it. But as you get older and you want more things, I had a job paying 6 figures and I wanted to buy me a luxury car. I went to the dealership and he was like, do you have a cosigner? And I was like, why do I need a cosigner? I make so much money. I have so much of a down payment. He said, because your credit is trash. And I was clutching my pearls because I was like, what? He's like, yeah, your credit is in the 500s. And in order for us to get you this loan, you need a cosigner. So that shame really prompted me to start working on my credit. I didn't have a regimen, a rhyme or reason to how I fixed it. I just paid off things. I reached out to creditors, can we, if I pay this, will you take it off? That type of thing. So when I went for my pre-approval for the building or the property, I was on pins and needles because I was so afraid to look at my credit because of that experience at the car dealership that I just was like, I don't even want to know. But he came back and he said, you're 730. And he was like, that's a great score. And I was so surprised. So yeah.
That's so interesting.
I was afraid.
That's so interesting. That was out of all the things, it's just an interesting thing, right? How does that feel? How do you feel about that now? Just getting credit for it. I feel like that's an everyday thing.
Oh my God. So now I'm hyper aware of my credit. I'm in the 800s and I do everything to keep me there. Even, taking on a lot of debt to buy more property, I still know how to manage my personal credit in a way that keeps me, in a positive way to leverage it so I can get like business credit and things like that. But that experience really taught me that, cash is king, but credit is crucial, especially when you're trying to, buy property.
I love it. I love it so much. So, okay, the credit was a fear. What was the other fears?
The other fear was I bought my property in Chicago. I am not from Chicago. I don't know anyone that lives there. But I knew there was an opportunity. I knew that the properties wasn't as astronomical as every other place in the United States. The properties pretty much held their value. And there's a lot of inventory. I wanted to buy multifamily. I wanted to buy a 4-unit, and there was tons of inventory at really, really great prices. So I just said, well, now I'm gonna be an out-of-state investor, and I just took the leap. That's one thing about me. I may be fearful, but I'm gonna do it scared. So I went out there. Everyone had to still wear masks because this was at the height. I'm sorry, my lights. At the height of the pandemic, and you had to wear gloves and masks and things like that. And I still went, and I still bought a property out there. I'm so sorry.
Talk about that. No worries. I can take the reins for a second. You need a moment to get your lighting going. But yeah, no, I am super curious about how you push through those fears, right? I think you said it, and I think it's the key to every single entrepreneurial's journey is doing it even though you're scared, right? Doing new things, Like I've been buying a bunch of sub twos for myself personally, and then now I want to do it where I'm using more of my own credit to buy conventionally. I haven't been doing that. I've just been freaking just using everybody else's credit and all the loans that were already in place, right? Which works, but also you want to make sure that like you're doing all avenues and have relationships with bankers and conventional lenders and all of that stuff. So I definitely want to ask you, how did you, even though you were having those fears, how did you make it where you were able to do those things? I still see you messing with the lights a little bit. Oh no, I think you got it.
I got it.
So yeah, that's my question.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. This is just so embarrassing.
No, it's okay. If you need a moment too, I can riff to my audience and just kind of just say what's up.
Okay, I think we're good.
All right, cool. So did you get my question? I know you were messing with the lights.
You said that you leverage other people's credit because you use sub 2.
Yes. And what I was asking you was, how do you push through those fears of even, like you said something that I love, which is doing it even while I'm afraid. How do you do that? How does one do that?
I feel like if I don't do something in the moment that I've internalized that I want to do it, I won't do it. Because it's safe having your 9 to 5. It's safe just, having your home and paying your regular bills. It's safe not having a tenant, not having a building to worry about, CapEx expenses, OpEx expenses. But I didn't want to live where it was safe anymore. I had read so many stories about other investors and how people built their wealth and was able to walk away from their 9 to 5 jobs and really live their lives. I said, I want that. So I said, if I don't do this, I'm never going to do it. So I said at the top of the year, I said, I'm not going to let this year go by without buying this first property. And I just committed to that. I committed to that in a way where I was up all night looking for properties because I was getting outbid because I was using FHA. I had my realtor on text, like send him text at 12 o'clock at night. I'm like, this just went listed. Could you put in an offer? He was like, sight unseen. I was like, sight unseen. I see the pictures. I see the video. Let's do it. Because again, if I don't get in the game, I'm going to lose my nerve and I'm not going to play. So that's really how I push myself. I have to psych myself up.
I love it. I love it so much. So how does one get into the game? I mean, I don't know, like if you had saved up money from your job, or like how does one do it without having that much money? That's like the classic question I get. So talk
Yeah.
about that for a little bit. How you
So
buy properties without money?
so I that's a misconception that people say you can buy a property without money. You have to have money in some part of the transaction, whether it's your inspection, your closing costs, paying your realtor, all of that stuff, right? But you can buy more cheaply. You can buy with less money out of pocket. So I opted to go for FHA loan instead of paying the 20% down because I really didn't have it. Because it was pretty much on a whim that I said I wanted to buy a property. So what I did was I took my bonus that had been sitting, and I took a loan from my 401k, and that's how I got the money for the down payment. And throughout the transactions of trying to find a place, trying to find a property, um, putting in offers, getting them rejected, I was just saving my paychecks because, I have a really good job and I do have disposable income. So if I'm not blowing it on clothes and shoes, I can save it and, save a good amount of money. And I was so committed to it. I went on a no buy. So unless it was absolutely necessary, like gas and food, I didn't spend any money. So I just kept saving my money and putting in offers, and that's how I was able to finance my first deal.
I love it. That's fun. And then so you do your first deal. Talk to us more about your story. Like, what do you do then? You buy your first deal, and then what happens?
So with FHA, it is an owner occupied loan, and I lived theoretically in New Jersey because that's where my family home is. That's where I live with my husband and my family. But my property was in Chicago. It worked out because I was able to work remote and going through underwriting. They said, well, your job is in New York, so how are you going to live in Chicago? Because again, it's an owner occupied loan. And so I asked my manager, I was like, could you write me a letter that I'm going to, be living in Chicago? So he's like, sure, because he supported me buying this property because he's like, a girl dad, and he's like, women should own property. So he wrote me the letter, and I was able to close on a property because that was like a really key piece because they wanted to make sure that I would be living there. And I did live there. I lived there for almost 2 years, in the property in Chicago, away from my family for 2 years. And the reason why is because it's a federal charge if you don't follow that criteria, right?
Right. Was this a single family? Was it a quadruplex?
It was a fourplex.
Okay, nice. So you got your first 4 units that way. Love it.
Yeah.
And then did you rinse and repeat, or how did it work?
So after I stayed there, I actually got into my first flip, which was like 7 minutes away in the next town over in Oak Park. So it really worked out that I was living there because I was able to get into my first flip as well. So in the whole interim of me being there, I got to learn how to be a landlord, how to manage my tenants, how to manage my vendors, my contractors. I built up a nice network of title people, contractors, um, CHA inspectors, which is Section 8 for Chicago. A whole big network of people that I know and that I do business with now, and finished that flip, made $157,000 from it. And I finally came back home, rented out all of the units in my four unit, and then came back. And me and my husband, we bought some single families that we BRRRRed. So we fixed those up and we got tenants in there. And then we got into one more flip, which is still on the market because the market had like kind of bottomed out. But it's a beautiful project, and we're just hoping that when the interest rates go down in September, hopefully, that we'll be able to move it. And after that, we'll just be focusing on new construction.
I love it. Okay, cool. Why new construction?
Because the numbers just work better. I could build a 4 unit for about $350,000, whereas everything will be new. I won't have any capex expenses for at least 5 to 7 years. I'll be able to get better rents because it's new inventory, and we're creating inventory because there is a housing shortage, and I just want to have that experience. So I figured us getting into like smaller new construction would be ideal.
I love it. Cool. So what are your goals? Like, where are you going right now? I mean, it sounds like you've done a couple of flips. You own a quadplex. You want to start doing new builds. What are your goals? Are you still at your job? Are you trying to replace your job income? Like, where are you going with it?
I am actually still at my job, and people ask me all the time, why are you still at your job? And it's because I actually love it. I'm a software developer, and I love my manager. He's the one that wrote the letter so I could close on my property. I love the work that I do, and it hasn't been a situation where there's an opportunity cost that is so great that I need to leave my job. That might come in the future, like with these new construction projects. But for right now, I like the security. You know, growing up in poverty, you want the security of a paycheck. So even though we're doing BRRRRs and we're making six figures from those BRRRRs, a job just gives me that security that just makes me feel confident to go after more deals. So that's where I am in terms of work. But the goal is to replace my income.
So, question:
Yeah.
How do you deal with being a real estate investor and then also having a job at the same time? It seems like those two things, like you could do way more deals if you weren't having to do your job, right? So, how do you deal with the fact that you still have your W-2 in order to, how do you deal with having a W-2 but still like doing real estate?
So the W-2 actually makes it easier for me to do real estate. It gives lenders peace of mind that, I can pay the loan back. Every hard money lender that I've worked with, that's one of the first things they ask for is W-2 information. I know we can do DSCR, but for the flips, we just go regular hard money. So it gives them peace of mind. It gives me peace of mind. It hasn't gotten to a point where I can't do real estate because I do still work remote. So when deals come across my desk, I'm analyzing them, or I'm giving them to my VA to analyze, or my husband is analyzing them because he works from home as well. When we have to go on site for construction, I just bring my laptop and I'm logged in and I get the notifications on my phone. So because I have a remote job, it makes it easier to be mobile, to go to job sites and meet with lenders and title companies and all that. So it hasn't been a hindrance just yet.
Love it. Amazing. So it sounds like you're using realtors in order to make it happen. Like you're having some help. What's your team look like right now?
So it's mainly me and my husband, and I work with a lot of realtors that get off-market deals, and I also work with a lot of wholesalers. So I'm on a bunch of wholesale lists. Those individuals send me, properties, and if they meet my buy box, then I'll pursue them a little bit further. And I just have this criteria that I look for, and I'm also always looking for like at least $100,000 spread if I'm going to do a fix and flip. And I just stick to that criteria. I really don't venture out of it too much, even though I do want to try other strategies like sub 2 and the DSCR, but I just haven't had the opportunity because I've just been focused on the fix and flips and the buy and holds.
When you do a BRRRR, you can refinance into a DSCR if you want to.
Yes.
So it's not like you can't do it that way.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I totally get it. A lot of my audience are wholesalers. What would you tell to wholesalers to be successful? What are like your pet peeves as a buyer? What do you wish your wholesalers like were doing differently?
Leave meat on the bone. I have come across I've come across a lot of wholesalers, especially new ones, and they're a beast at getting the deal. They are a beast at talking to that seller and getting that property assigned over to them. But then they want to take so much of the deal. It's just like, you're not leaving me any incentive to want to buy this because Luke, you have to leave meat on the bone. And that's going to make me want to work with you more. And that's going to make me introduce you to my network. Because like I said, I'm an educator. I have a lot of people that follow me that want to get into real estate, that want me to mentor them through their first deal. And I'm a sharer. I'm going to refer you to people I think is great. So That's my biggest pet peeve. Leave some meat on the bone, because we want to continue to do deals together. And if we can't get the deal to pencil because you're taking too much, then we just can't make it work.
I love it. I love it so much. So talk to me. I'm curious, you're an educator. How did you become an educator? Or like what do you feel like qualifies someone to be an educator? There's a lot of them out here.
Yes.
So how does one like I guess how'd you become one? And then like what do you teach and all that good stuff to start off?
That's a funny story, because I'm a begrudging educator. When I first closed on my property, I went to Instagram and I posted about it because I was so excited that I had did something that I never thought that I could do, that nobody that I knew had done, in my immediate circle, my family or anything like that. And I was super excited about it. So I posted about it. And people was like, congratulations, congratulations. And this one young lady, her name is the Money Girl on Instagram. She was like, "Could you come on my platform and talk to my my audience about how you did how did you buy your four unit?" And I was like, "Wow, okay, I could talk to you about my experience," and I did. And two people from that audience, they reached out to me and asked me, could I have a consultation with you to talk about how to buy property? And I was like, a consultation? I don't feel like I'm qualified to give you a consultation. And the Money Girl, she reached out to me. She was like, I know that you're hesitant. She was like, set up a PayPal, set up a Calendly, and just talk them through your experience. You don't have to know every single thing, but talk them through your experience, because you have experience that's like on a level 5. They have experience that's on a level 1 or 2. So your experience is going to help them get to a level 5. So your experience is valuable. So when she put it like that, I was just like, okay. So I put something together, and I helped those individuals. And one person did go on to buy a multifamily from the consultation. And I held her hand throughout the process, but there was success there. So I just committed myself to continuously learning about different products, because my specialty is helping you get into your first multifamily as cheaply as possible, which is using like an owner occupied loan or NACA or something like that. And, really helping people get from point A to the closing table. That's my goal. That's the rock that I stand on.
I love it.
Because there's a lot of people popped up that say they were teachers and things like that, but I would caution people, tell them to show, I want to see some proof. Where's your HUD? If you've done a BRRRR, provide some information. If you own properties, rentals, provide some information. Like, you want some receipts, because anybody can pop on Instagram or any social media and become a guru, and I feel like that's predatory, to take people's money and promise them that you'll help them obtain something that you haven't even obtained. So but yeah, me becoming an educator was begrudging.
I really like that. That's a cool story of how it happens, right? I mean, the best educators are the ones who don't necessarily want to teach, right? And make tons of money from it. So what are the biggest mistakes people make when they're buying their first property, right? Like, especially if they're qualifying for a quadplex. I'm going to do this, right? I own a couple properties. I'm not probably going to use the FHA. I'm probably going to use like the 5% down multifamily loans that are like newer, just because I already own properties.
Right.
But what do you feel like most people screw up? Or like, what do people do wrong?
I think that a lot of times they think that they have to be a retail buyer in order to get into these loans and get into these properties. I always tell them, you want to think about buying your first multifamily as an investor. So even if you have to buy that distressed property, not the one that's turnkey or anything like that, because that's going to be more expensive, you can get a distressed three or four unit and use the 203K loan, or even NACA. NACA is 0% down, zero closing costs. They don't consider your credit. They even have a construction loan that you can roll into your loan, and they will pay for the construction of or rehab.
Wait, sorry, say that again. You say there's a conventional loan that's 0% down?
Oh, it's NACA. NACA is a nonprofit. They work with people, first-time home buyers, they want people to own homes. So their organization is to remove some of the friction. And a lot of times the friction is people can't save the down payment. Even though they work, they may not be able to save the down payment. Some people have credit issues like I did. And, so they remove the friction of it. The main criteria for NACA is that you can show a history that you have paid rent. So they want to see those bank statements every month that the rent has come out, but they don't consider your credit. They don't consider it's 0% down, 0% closing costs, and it's a really great opportunity for people to.
Wait, they don't? Do they consider your income? They must consider your income.
They don't. There's no income limit for NACA as far as my last time checking.
Okay, well now I'm like on the website, like, wait, what the hell is this? Like, can I do that? Like, I gotta see whether I can do this or not. I'm like looking up the eligibility requirements.
Mm-hmm.
No member of the household can have ownership interest in any other property at the time of closing. God damn it. Well,
right. That's the caveat, because they want to make an opportunity.
You have to not own any other homes.
Right. But if you have a girlfriend, a sister, a cousin, a niece.
I'm kind of curious. We'll see, because they're all sub-2s. So none of them are in none of the mortgages are in my name. So I don't know how they check whether it is, unless they look at my tax returns or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. It might not be worth it. But anyways, that just was very intriguing. Okay, we got a question here. Let's ask it. New wholesaler here as well. Me on the bone have been the same issue calling potential buyers while JV deals take consent. How can I maneuver through that? Well, the way to maneuver through that is put more meat on the bone. What do you mean, Edward? Like, that's the issue. You have to make it where it's like, no, you gotta get it lower. I don't quite understand your question exactly, Edward, but anyways, what other issues? Because when you're consulting people, like, what are the issues they're bringing you about being able to do it for the first time?
The main issue that's consistent across the board is credit. That's like the first thing that comes out of someone's mouth. My credit is bad. So either you will go a more conventional route and buy 20% down, get a co-signer, those type of things. But if you want to buy it and it's in your own name by yourself, you're going to have to fix your credit. And that means making phone calls to those creditors, asking them, if I pay this, will you take this, bad credit off my credit report? Make sure you get something in writing, and make your payments on time. Like, that's the best way to keep your credit good. But I do understand that things happen. People fall on hard times and things, fall to the wayside. But in order to buy property, you have to have good credit. Like, the lender, that's one of their, that's the litmus test.
I want to ask you something. You really never do. How about people who just don't have the income? Do you ever deal with that?
Yeah.
Do you have ways around that?
So there's plenty of down payment assistance programs that will assist you, that you can get grants, you can get loans, you can stack those grants.
All right, we're gonna get me a loan. I'm turned this into a consultant session. Sorry, Zena. Screw everyone else who's watching this podcast. We're gonna get me qualified right now. So my biggest issue, I think, is that I'm self-employed, right? And so my income is really good, but it fluctuates a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of curious if there are programs that care less about that. My credit's great. I'm just curious. Yeah. I want to be able to qualify for more than I think I'm going to be able to qualify for based on my research. I think I'm going to be able to qualify for $500K. I want to be able to qualify for $1 million, and it's annoying me.
Right.
I don't know.
So I don't come across a lot of individuals that self-employed. A lot of people that I work with have jobs still. But I know for NACA, they just want to have 2 years of tax returns that will show you've made a certain amount of money during this time. So I know that self-employment, it does fluctuate, but you don't want to have a year that you made 200,000 and then a year you made 20,000, because that's too much of a fluctuation. It needs to be a little bit more succinct in that. And the down payment programs that I come across are for, low income. I don't come across down payment programs for people that's unemployed that makes $500,000 a year. Because again, the caveat to that is we want to help people that are disadvantaged to get into programs, to get into these programs so they can qualify for homes. but you've challenged me because now I need to look up down payment programs that help individuals that make a lot of money.
Well, for me, I have the down payment too. Like I have a lot saved up, right? It's more like I want to be qualified for more, basically, right? Like the numbers work. Anyways, I don't know. I was just curious because like that's going to be my issue is they're going to qualify me for like a freaking 500K loan. But I want to be qualified for like $1 million loan so I can live where I want, where there are like quadplexes where I want them.
Right.
So anyway, I thought I was just, I would just wanted to see that. It's all good. Don't worry about it. You're also not a mortgage loan officer. Is that what you mainly help people with? Is it that? Is it the fix and flipping? Like, how does your consulting work, or do you have a community, or how does it work?
So I mainly focus on buying your first multifamily property. The reason why is because I want people to eliminate their housing expense, because now you own the building, your tenants will pay the mortgage. I teach you how to buy a property so that it's if it's not cash flowing at the time that you buy it, it'll be cash flowing around the time that you're ready to move out, because you've made your improvements, you've raised your rents, you got Section 8 tenants that pays a little bit more than market sometimes. You've been able to save your rent for 12 months because like I said, when you move into when you use a owner occupied loan, you have to live in the property for a year. Some people don't, but I always advise to, because it's against the law to not to, but use that time to save the money that you would have been paying in rent. So a lot of times people say, I paid $1,500, I paid $2,000. Save that money, just save it, because now that money can be used to go into your next project. And like I said, your tenants are paying the mortgage, and you're living for free. That's like the biggest advantage to buying property and living there. You get to live for free, and during the time that you're there, it's you're learning how to be a landlord, because that is a skill. You're learning how to manage your tenants. You're learning about a business, because now you have a business, you're a landlord. This is something now that you can add to your taxes. Now you have tax advantages. Now you have tax write-offs. Like, you've changed the whole trajectory of your life by buying this first 4 unit. And people may not realize that, but that is the case. So that's my core.
Talk about that. How does it change the trajectory of someone's life?
So, like I said, you buy a 4 unit, a 3 unit somewhere that's affordable for you, right? You were paying $2,000 or $2,500 because you're at the whim of the landlord that you're renting at. And say that that's a challenge for you. That's more than 50% of what you make a month. And you want to change that because you can't live. You're struggling to pay other bills. You're struggling to just exist, right? Once you are able to save, because you get your tax returns, people get their write-offs and tax credits and stuff like that. Save that money. A lot of people blow it by shopping, but save it. And also look for the down payment assistance programs and buy your first multifamily property and live in it. Now you've eliminated that expense. Yes, you're still going to pay your light and gas bill and stuff like that, but the biggest expense, which a lot of people struggle with, is now eliminated, because now you have tenants that pays the mortgage. If they don't pay 100% at the time that you are living there, they'll pay a majority of it. So you may kick in $200. So $200 versus $2,000, I'll take it every day. And the disparity in that, you just save it. You save it so that you can get into your next property after the year is up, or you can live there forever if you want to, because I know a lot of people that buy multifamilies and their goal is not to be a real estate investor. They just want to eliminate their housing expense and have someone else pay the mortgage, and that's fine too. But that does change the trajectory, because now you have some breathing room. You can live. You're not deciding if you're going to pay a bill or go grocery shopping. So that to me changes the trajectory of a lot of people's lives.
No, it totally makes sense. No, I love it. And then also, like, eventually, I mean, you bought that at the beginning, your quadplex, you bought it at the pandemic. What is that worth? Like almost double what you bought it for?
it's worth like 660. I bought it at 450, and I've
Right.
had it for about 2.5 years.
That's a crazy return. That's $100,000 a year,
That's
right?
crazy.
I mean, obviously, we dealt with like the craziest appreciation ever in the past 2 years, right? It doesn't happen always like that. But even
Right.
my sub twos have like all appreciated like 200,000. You know,
Yeah,
like it's kind of crazy
it
how that
is.
works. Like once you buy real estate, hold it for 5 years, you're like, wow, that was all worth it in the end. Took 5 years, but like, man, that's sick.
Yeah.
So, anywho,
Yes, so I'm a huge proponent of that. Now I do have other individuals that's like, Zena, I don't want to own property. I don't want to deal with tenants just yet. I do want to do flips because I want to learn how to, do that, because that's a skill in itself, and have the big money day all at once. So I just signed up my first mentee to walk her through her first fix and flip, and I'm kind of excited about that, but I've kept it on a down low because for me it's like a proving ground to make sure that I'm addressing everything she needs addressed, and that I'm helping her at the highest level that I can help her while still having a 9 to 5 job. So we've had a great discussion, and she's on board, and I'm excited to get started. But that program is to help you from beginning to closing. So
how do you find these people that want to pay you money for like consulting? Is it like through your social media, or like how do these people reach out to you?
if they reach out to me through social media, I'm pretty active on social media. I like to teach about different things. I post about different programs, and just things, all things real estate basically. And I do host events. I just hosted Rose and Real Estate, where we talked about getting into your first property, and I call it a chic educational experience because it's rose and it's fancy, but I'm teaching how to buy your first property. I'm teaching you how to, um, become a housing provider, because that's something that's needed in society right now, and how to subscribe to the best subscription ever, which is having Section 8 tenants pay the mortgage. A lot of people, they turn their nose up to Section 8, but the government pays on time every month. And for me, I'd rather take chances on a tenant that I know I'm going to get guaranteed rent than a market tenant, especially where my rentals are. They're in like C areas, CD areas, if you're familiar with. I know that you are. So for me, I want to make sure that I teach a gamut of different strategies to, one, get into the property, and two, to keep it rented, so that you're not having to kick in rent because you're holding the bag because you are the mortgage holder, but the goal is to always have your tenants pay the rent. So why not have guaranteed rent that's coming in from the government every month, regardless of anything? Even during the pandemic, when everything else was closed, people were still getting paid their rent. So,
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much. So talk about the importance of social media. Like, what do you put on there? Like, what's your social media strategy?
Joshua,
Jonah, don't worry.
Jonah, I'm sorry. And that's my favorite character from Superbad.
Is it? Oh yeah.
I love
I mean,
Jonah.
hey, Jonah Hill is great. I love it.
Um,
Great movie.
so I post about how to buy a multifamily. I post about the benefits of owning, living rent free. Um, I also post about my projects. Like I take a camera and I walk through my projects and talk about plumbing and framing and electrics and failing inspections and picking out tile. I talk about everything because I want people to have a holistic view of what real estate is and can be. And I'm not flashy about the things that I have, because that's not important to me, and that's certainly not important to a person that want to learn more about real estate. So I just try to post about, events that I may go to that is, speaking to, building wealth through real estate, women empowerment events, I like stuff like that. But for the most part, my social media is just talking about projects that I've gotten into, sharing new information that I may have about a program, a down payment program, a new loan, something that's coming down from HUD. So I just like to have a real holistic page that's talking about a lot of different things, and I sprinkle in some humor and some funny things at times, but for the most part, it's knowledge that you can build upon, and a lot of times it's actionable.
I love it. I love that so much. I need to show more of my deals. That's the issue, I think. I like what I report is like not as related to deals, but I should do that more often. I think
Yeah,
that's my issue.
people are curious; they want to know.
Because my business is probably like 85% wholesaling and then
Mm,
5% flipping and then 10% buy and holds. I just need to show the flips and the buy and holds. I think wholesaling, I love wholesaling, but it's just
mhm.
harder to show on social media.
It
Yeah,
is.
I just think that's the issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, all good. So cool. Like so what are your goals? What do you want to be doing? What's like your next step? What's next for Zena?
My next step is to see how this mentorship goes and then formalize a program that I can um, allocate enough time to and to really help individuals go from A to the closing table. And the next thing is affordable housing. I am part of a mentorship group out in Chicago of just women investors. We just finished a cohort to learn how the construction side of fix and flips. And I'm totally down for, learning how to frame and hang drywall and stuff like that, because you never know if you're going to have to jump into a project because your guy went ghost on you, those headaches from contractors. So that was what that mentorship was. And um, we're now going to do a project together where we're getting land from the land bank in Chicago, and we're going to build affordable housing. Each of the women under the tutelage of the instructor and the lead of the mentorship. So that's what's immediately next for me.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Cool. Well, let me ask you this. I think we're starting to get closer to the end of the podcast, but real quick, like Zena, if you could go back to right when you were just getting into real estate, what's like the one thing you would tell yourself then, knowing everything that you know now?
Go faster. I would
Talk
go
about that.
so much faster. I would, because once I got into my first deal, I should have immediately got into my next one. Um, I I hesitated because I was just like, wow, this was such a monumental thing for me. Um, and I had to sit with it for a little while. Like, I'm not sure if your audience ever feels that way. Like when you achieve something that you didn't think was possible for you, sometimes you just want to sit with it for a minute. But I feel like I sat with it too long and I just got, a little gun shy to go after the next thing. I should have gone after the next thing as soon as I closed, because the butterflies was as big as dragons, and I was raring to go. But I did, get into a project, my first fix and flip, a year into owning that multifamily. But my biggest regret was slowing down. I wish I had, just kept going and went faster, because there was a lot of deals to be had, and I miss a lot of them.
I love it. I love it so much. So yeah, awesome. Well, I love that advice. Where can people find you? How if they want to hire you as a consultant? Like where would they go? Like what stuff can we plug?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram, Zena Dixon Inc. INC. And so Zena Dixon Inc. That is my handle on Instagram. And yes, thank you. And you can find my link tree in my bio. You'll see the events that I'm hosting. Actually, I'm doing a sip and see to do a tour of a completed project, because I also get people that reach out to me that they're having trouble with design, the design aspect of their fix and flip. So, I just wanted to have a space for people to learn those things as well, not just walkthroughs of projects that took months. So that's where you can find information about consultations or any of the events that I'm hosting. And you can reach me. Um, you can reach me to my email at there as well. Oh my God, can I talk? You can reach me.
You're okay.
You can reach me via email from my profile as well.
I love it. Zena, stay on afterwards. I really appreciate you. Guys, episode 127, we're out. I'm not going to be doing it for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to be traveling in Iceland with my dad. That's the cool thing about doing real estate. You get to do crazy stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So I will be back in like 3 weeks. I'm just not doing podcasts. It's just not worth it. I appreciate all of you guys so much. Skorch the Fears, episode 127. Zena, you did amazing. Let's freaking go.